This episode of the Lawyers Hip Hop Happy Hour is sponsored by the law offices of Alfred Guillaume III, a boutique criminal defense firm located in Washington, D.C. The firm specializes in defending federal criminal cases. You can learn more about the firm by visiting our website at guillaumelaw.com. That's GUILLAUME law.com. Welcome to part one of my interview with Meredith Jolivert, Vice President and General Counsel of Politico, an international news organization. Politico covers politics and has publications in the United States, Europe, United Kingdom, and Canada. After listening to this episode, you will learn why Meredith really is a woman without limits. To put it another way, as Rick Ross would say, she's a real boss, and I learned a ton from her in our short time together. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this interview. Welcome to another episode of the Lawyers Hip Hop Happy Hour. I'm so honored and privileged to be joined by my good friend, attorney Meredith Jolivert. I just want to make sure I get the last name right.
You did.
Welcome, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I know you are. Before we even get started, I want to just say that we have this tradition in our show where we have our guests go through the crates of vinyl records. Mm-hmm. And I've never before pulled out multiple crates for any other guests before you, because and we're going to get to it, because that's usually the second part of our interview where we talk about the music.
Right.
But your musical knowledge and the things that you were saying to me were just blowing me away. I had to bring out extra crates. So I don't even really want to talk about the other stuff, but I know we have to, because people want to hear about other things. But just at the outset, I want to say that was, wow, I can't wait for that discussion.
Well, I'm excited about it too. I love music. So.
Yes, I've learned how much in this short time that we've had going through the crates, how much music has been a part of your life, your family's life.
Yeah.
And I am so excited to talk about it.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, we want to introduce the world to you and who you are. Mm-hmm. You are the general counsel for the organization Politico.
Right.
And can you just explain to those of us who may not know what that position means or that organization is, what it is that you do?
Sure. So Politico is a media organization. It is a digital content media organization that is focused on sort of the intersection of politics and policy. Is
it based in D.C.?
So our headquarters is in Arlington, Virginia, in Roslyn. We actually
a suburb of Washington, D.C.
Correct. It's a multinational organization, so I'm the general counsel, the global head of the legal group. We have a downstream subsidiary that's in Brussels. So there's a Politico EU that also has the same nonpartisan mission of sort of educating the global citizenry about politics, right? And in this time of hyper-partisanship and sort of disinformation, I think the work that our journalists do is really the most important.
And Politico is a nonpartisan organization.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Which means that you report the news as it is,
correct,
without taking an ideological stance. Is that
correct,
a pretty fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. So, right, the point, the objective is to provide coverage, to educate people, to provide accurate and impactful reporting.
So you are an attorney that works for the organization who's in charge of a lot of different people and things.
Yes.
How did you arrive at that position?
It was a really long journey. I'm actually the first lawyer in Politico's history.
Wow.
It's a 17-year-old, the U.S. or North American corporation it's 17 years old. And I was hired by the former upstream owner. The sort of arrangement was like a holding company, operating company sort of arrangement where I was hired at the holding company to do all of the legal work for the operating companies.
So we're like at that time sounds like a jack of all trades.
Correct. Yeah. Well, yeah. Right. As a total generalist, I started my career in energy law, and started, at a big firm, kind of worked at a series of firms around town, and then went in-house. Yeah, in D.C. I went to Georgetown, so stayed local. Started out my career at a Boston-based firm doing energy law, and
so you were at a big law firm.
Yeah.
And now you're at a
media organization.
So
Right.
seems to me like there's two very different kinds of lifestyles.
Correct.
And
Well, not really now, right? Because the news is continuous, right?
24 hours a day.
24 hours
Right.
a day.
No doubt about that.
And so the intervening work was at a nonprofit organization
Okay.
that's an energy regulator. And that was much more predictable and didn't have the same level of frenetic pace.
I know just from having you scheduled to be on this show that you're a
Yes.
very busy person.
Yes.
And I do appreciate you coming on and making time for us. But I want to, before we talk a little bit more about what you do on a day-to-day,
Yeah.
how did you just arrive? Can you walk us through how you arrived to become a lawyer, whether there were any lawyers in your family, whether you're the first?
Sure.
That sort of thing.
My immediate family is largely creative. And so at 10, I decided I wanted to be a lawyer.
Wow, so you knew early on.
Yeah.
See, I had no idea.
Oh, no, I knew at 10.
Wow.
At 10. And I told my parents.
10 years old.
Yeah. And I would say that I was raised in a household where there were no limits. I was just whatever I said I would.
So they supported you in whatever your dreams
Correct.
and endeavors were.
Correct.
Now, let
correct.
me ask you, you were 10 years old. What made a 10-year-old child say that they wanted to be a lawyer? What was the influence? Were you watching lawyers on TV? Were you reading books about lawyers?
So, I think that it was just interesting, right?
It is interesting.
I'm not a creative person naturally, so I knew I didn't want to be a musician or, my mom's a producer. She's an executive at Sony Music. My dad's a jazz musician. And
So the musical connection is strong.
it is, both sides, right? My grandfather was a doctor. Math and science didn't work for me.
Me
way.
neither. I don't think any lawyer would have become a lawyer because they were good at math and science.
Right, exactly. And so, my great uncle, I guess he's, is a lawyer.
Okay, so
but
you
it
had a
wasn't,
lawyer in your family.
Yeah, but it wasn't like we spent a lot of time talking about it. It was just something that I wanted to do, and I
Wow.
knew.
Did you watch TV shows about lawyers like Perry Mason or
No, I was
Matlock? That's my favorite show.
Yeah, no, I think at 10, like I was watching, I don't know, like the Jeffersons and the Dukes of Hazzard, right? Like the two polar opposites,
right, the two polar opposites
of things.
That's such
Love
is life in
Boat,
America.
right? And
Oh, I
Fantasy
love
Island,
Love Boat.
Oh,
that was my show. I haven't heard that in a long time.
Right, exactly.
The
So I
Love
wasn't
Boat.
watching exactly anything that.
So you just knew it was inherent in you that you knew
Yeah.
that you wanted to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And you're born in New York, but you were
Yes.
raised in New Jersey.
Yeah.
As we talked about a moment ago, when we were off camera, you said you grew up being able to look across the bridge and see Manhattan.
Yeah, both my parents worked in Manhattan. And so, it really, really close. I went to high school in Jersey City, grammar school in Hoboken. So right between the bridge and the tunnel. But Jersey strong always.
Jersey strong always.
Yeah.
And proud Jersey person.
Yeah.
And again, we're not talking about the music yet, but you talked about some strong Jersey influences in your
Yes.
musical taste.
Yeah.
And some artists that came out of New Jersey.
Yeah.
Which I'm excited, will be excited to talk about. But I keep getting ahead of myself. You're from New Jersey. You graduated from high school in New Jersey, and you end up at law school.
Right.
You were at Georgetown at some point, but you're in American University first. So I skipped over that.
Yeah.
In Washington, D.C.
Yep.
Did you take any time off between undergrad and law school?
So I did. Right. I graduated super early, and then I went to graduate school.
How early did you graduate?
So I went to college when I was 16. I graduated at 20.
I see them in the presence of some smart folks.
It sounds more impressive than it really is, I would say. I just have an early birthday, and, it just worked that way.
You are a Leo. Shout out to all the Leos out there.
Yes. And so I needed the, sort of, I think, extra time and went to graduate school, and I worked full time and did that at night. And then I took 3 years in between graduate school and law school.
Okay, I did as well. I
Yeah.
took 3 years as well.
Yeah. So, and it was really good. I mean, I think it was a good.
Yeah, that's the argument that people will have, right? What's better? Is it better to go straight through while you're in the student mode and do that, or just take some time off and do other things and then go back? What makes you the stronger student? I don't know the answer. I took time off, and I have friends of mine who I went to school with who went straight through.
Me too.
And everybody is doing pretty well.
Correct. So, yeah, I don't know that there's one path that's better. I think you have to do what works for you.
Exactly.
Right?
I was just going to say that. You have to do what works for you, and you still will end up being successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've been in D.C. for a while.
Yeah, forever.
It's been a while since.
Yeah. 34 years.
34. Wow. Congratulations.
A long time. Twice as long as I was in Jersey, actually.
Right. It's funny how when we're grow up, quote unquote, and move on and get families of our own and stuff, that we end up living in a place that's not, if it's not our home, longer than we lived from where we're from.
Correct.
This is my 22nd year, almost 23rd year of D.C.
Yeah.
So you got me beat by a little bit.
Yeah.
What drew you to D.C.?
I think it was just the proximity. It was close enough to home that I could get home when I needed to. It was
4 hours away.
Right, far enough away that no one would roll up onto campus in the middle of the day. At the time, my sister lived here. My cousins, my aunts and uncles.
So you have a connection.
Yeah. So I have extra family, and support.
I'm a big DC fan myself.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not from here, I'm a big DC fan.
Yeah. So it felt right. And at the time, it was really like Chocolate City, right? It was this amazing place to come. And even though I didn't go to Howard.
I'm sorry.
Well,
that's okay. We still love you.
People say that. They're like, oh, you Howard? And I was, no, I didn't go to Howard, unfortunately. But
it's okay.
But it was still really a great place.
It's really a very great place, a unique place. Yeah. And it was when I moved here. It was the tail end of what the Chocolate City era. Yeah. And for people who may not be able to, there's context clues to what you're saying, of course.
Right,
but
sure.
Can you talk about that? DC at that time and what's been known as Chocolate City.
Right. I mean, it was just a really like a bastion of sort of Black excellence. It was just like, you came down here, there were really...
And I still feel that it is, actually.
I agree. I agree. But I think it's
definitely changed.
Well, it has. I mean, there's a very different mix of people, right? They go to jury duty, right? And you go down and you're standing in line. I see it all the time. Sure, and I live in Northeast. Also, and my neighborhood has completely changed, right? We've been there now, I don't know, 19 years.
Okay.
Completely.
Northeast DC.
Yeah, Northeast DC.
DC split up into different quadrants, for those who may not know.
Yeah. Right. I mean, when we moved there, my neighborhood was completely all Black. There were, all of my neighbors were Black.
So I think that when I moved here, the population of the city was about 70%. And this is 2002.
Right.
70%.
Yeah, and I got here 90.
Right, so it was even more so.
Oh, yeah.
So it was known 100%. As Chocolate City. A famous, I will say an infamous line said by a politician at home where I'm from in New Orleans was when the mayor, I don't know if you remember, Ray Nagin, said...
Yeah, of course,
of course. You're a political person, so I brought he used the term Chocolate City to refer to New Orleans and caught a lot of flack for that. I thought it was unfair for that comment because it was just speaking the truth because New Orleans is also a city, even today, where the majority of the population is Black. Right. And it's just a fact.
Yeah,
and it's been that way ever since it's been around, actually. Yeah. And DC's the same. And it's changed now. There's a lot of arguments that people have on both sides about that, but I still feel, and which is why I have you here, and I'm so lucky to have access to all these wonderful people because it is still a place for Black excellence
100%.
And thriving Black excellence.
100%.
And I wanted to show the world that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think in college, coming into a space where, there were so many Black people that were my contemporaries was a really, really powerful thing.
It's powerful.
Yeah. It was great.
It's definitely powerful. And I think people, they always refer to Howard as the Becca.
Yeah, absolutely.
Having that, I guess being the representative of that Black excellence, but it exists in all corners of this city.
Right.
And
absolutely.
It's really remarkable. And it's just, you get so used to it. Afterwards, it becomes normal. You go into places and doesn't exist. and you're like, oh wait, okay, I guess it's different what we
So, that's a great point, because it doesn't matter where you are in this city. You could be in the most exclusive restaurant.
Right.
You could be in the most exclusive house, the White House, right? You're going to see Black people everywhere you go. And that is not typical, coming, like, growing up in New York. It's a
so
segregated
New York is
place.
the melting pot, right?
Right.
But how is
but it's sort of pockets.
Exactly.
People kind of are segregated in many ways. And so even now, my husband and I go back. His mom lives in Queens, and we'll go up and take our kids there, and we'll go out in New York, and we might be the only Black people in a restaurant. Depending on
and you're a fancy person, so I'm assuming that.
Indeed. It's
own it, okay?
Hey, it is what it is.
What it is.
Yeah. So like a fancy, restaurant, you're gonna go, right?
Manhattan, right?
And literally, we are the only two, Black people in the room. So, and that's just strange.
It's strange. Coming from D.C., it's definitely...
It really is.
It's definitely strange. So we are so lucky to live in this city. And also, when I first moved here, I got exposed to so many other different cultures as well.
Yeah.
Ethiopian culture is big in D.C. I think I heard a statistic that more Ethiopian people live in D.C., in the D.C. area, than anywhere else in the United States.
Yeah.
And it shows. And it's just another example of how vibrant and diverse our city is, and I really just love it.
The diaspora is really strong. I think there are a lot of people from a lot of different Black nations in DC, and that makes it even richer.
It does.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to your work and your career as an attorney.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you were at a law firm, and people have their notions, some correct, some incorrect. And I've never worked at a law firm. I didn't have that career path, but I've had friends, obviously, who have. And I've heard varying things from them. I wonder what because you are married, you have a family.
Yeah.
Your children are older now. But I would imagine that when you had these law firm jobs, that the demand on you was a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And how did you balance that with... Or did you have kids at the time?
I started my career single, and I met my husband actually in the middle of a 3-month trial.
Wow.
I worked from January 2nd to March 31st every day, 7 days a week, from January 2nd to March 31st. And I was at work until, 1, 2 in the morning, then back at like 8:30.
These are the stories that I hear.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Saturday night was the only night I could go out because we finished at like maybe 8 or 9.
So you're in court all day, and then you had to go back to prep?
I was an energy regulatory attorney, so practiced before FERC, so I wasn't in court. But
FERC is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
Yeah, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Sorry for the acronym.
No, that's okay. I know somebody that works there.
I do too. Yeah.
Shout out to
Willie
Chairman
Phillips. Chair
Willie
Phillips. Amen. And so, who is phenomenal. Talk about Black excellence, but
absolutely, he's been on the podcast as well.
Yes. And so I was in the middle of this horrible trial, or hearing really, before
FERC. 3 months.
3 months, and so
we're talking dense stuff.
Oh,
right?
I mean, it's super. It was about basically the demand curve for energy in New England. It was
I've already lost.
Right. It was
I don't know what you're talking about.
When you think about energy, the push and pull, supply and demand, it was about creating a market that would help ensure that energy was priced and available at the right time and in the right capacity. And so, but super dense.
Right. That's
super intense. And so I met my husband March 5th, so month 3 of that.
Oh, wow.
Right, and then on a Saturday night.
You remember.
I do.
That's very sweet.
I do. And then our first date was March 12th, and I fell asleep at the dinner table. And I was mortified. I thought I was going to die. And I got back to work, and I said, like, if I end up single and like eating soup out of a can and have a bunch of cats because I'm here with you all.
Yeah.
I'm coming back to haunt you.
Exactly.
You know, I literally fell asleep, and thankfully
it worked out.
It worked out.
Love conquers all.
Yes.
Love conquers all.
He was like, I'm gonna let you slide this time, but right, and so it all did work out, but it was embarrassing and
That's been
intense.
worst moments I'm sure many of us have had.
Yeah, and then I had 2 kids in private practice, and I can't say it got better. Right. It was
that is the pull, and especially you know, when I try not to ask women to be these questions, but it's relevant, right? How to manage family, because inevitably it falls out of a wife who's a physician.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm obviously not a physician,
right?
But I'm in here doing a podcast, and she's with our children right now.
Yeah.
And inevitably, she's got a job as hard as me.
Right.
It's harder than me. Okay, so. But you know, the responsibilities fall on the woman in a marriage more so than they do in men. I'm sorry, it's just a fact. And then, as much as we men try to act like we're doing something, as I'm always told, you're not doing nothing, brother.
Well, so
although I am doing something. I
think it, you know. So I would say my kids are with my husband right now. They're teenagers though, so they're really with themselves. But my husband is the reason I can show up the way that I can.
That's
he
awesome.
is, you know, in finance and has, you know, a stellar career himself. But but he is a true partner. And so we have had different roles at different times.
Exactly.
You know, for almost 8 years, I was at a nonprofit after the law firm life.
So that was a little bit easier, so workload-wise, I guess?
Oh, 100%.
More
I
manageable.
cooked dinner, you know, 6 nights a week,
you
and
were
I did
home
the
for dinner,
things, right? I did all of the, you know, field trips. I made a turkey for Thanksgiving, for the International Thanksgiving meal, right?
All right.
I just had time.
Okay.
You know, now...
It's
like,
different.
I don't cook at all. You know, I barely cook because I'm working all the time. I think.
Do you travel a lot with your job?
No, I don't, thankfully. But I am engaged 7 days a week. I work all the time. And so again, there's an ebb and flow. But it only works when you have a partner that gets what you're trying to do and supports you fully, right? I support him, I show up for him, and he shows up for me.
That's awesome. And that's,
so,
you know,
yeah,
that's what it is.
It is, but it wouldn't work without it.
I'm allowed to be here today because my wife supports me.
Yeah, correct.
I did tell her you were the guest, so she said, okay. I guess you can go.
I said hello.
I will. So you made it to, seems like, a point in your career where you are at the top of the food chain.
Yes, and I set an intention to do that several years before I got here.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So when I started my career, I wanted to be a partner at a law firm. That's what I thought I wanted to do. And one of the things that...
And why is that?
Because autonomy is important. Being able to shape your work and control the way that you show up in the room, and to have the resources that you need to be able to do great work is important. And in my view, in a law firm world, that comes from equity partnership.
Okay.
Right? And so...
did you ever make partner?
No, I left the law firm as an associate. Okay. So what happened was I had 2 kids. I worked around the clock. I didn't see my kids Monday through Thursday.
Wow.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so my husband was at home and had another person helping him. He is, at the time, he was at Booz Allen and on a federal government contract. And so his hours were a little bit more manageable. And it was like he was a single dad, and I was not the mom I wanted to be. I wasn't the wife I wanted to be. And I had to make a change. And so I went to NERC, the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, which is a regulator and responsible for keeping the lights on, basically. And there I pivoted into corporate work, away from energy regulatory work. And there was a general counsel there at the time, Charlie Baradesco, who took me under his wing and taught me how to negotiate contracts.
Okay, and you hadn't previously done that in your former law life.
No, not at all. I did, pleadings and like everything was energy regulatory
Right,
stuff.
so you were not in court. For people who may not know that, you were a transactional, I guess. Not even transactional.
A regulatory attorney, right? So focused on regulations from FERC, advising clients about how to comply with
heavy
those
stuff.
Yeah, right. But it was all super technical. It was regulatory. It's a little bit of policy work, some transactional work, litigation, but it was all before administrative agency. Right. And unless it was an appeal.
To a courtroom with a judge and doing what people think a quote unquote lawyer does. Right,
exactly. I mean, we appealed certainly, right? Once you exhaust your administrative options, then you can appeal to, an appeals court, and we did that, right? But it was very different work. But I knew when I pivoted and went in-house, I really needed to catch my breath. I needed to restore balance in my life. And I took a little bit of a pause.
So you were able to, you had to, for your own sanity, for your family's sanity.
Correct. I really did. But it was important to still grow.
How old were your children when this was going on?
So they were like, I don't know, 6, 5, and 7, maybe.
Okay.
Something like that. The good news is they don't remember.
Right, exactly. I was going to say.
They don't remember. And that's amazing because we passed my old law firm and I said, we were all together, and I said, either I said or my husband said, do you remember which one of us worked all the time and which one of us was never at home? And they thought it was my husband.
Right, like, yeah, Dad, you.
And he was like, blame the black man. And I was like, I'm sorry, but I was so thankful they didn't remember that I was not there, And so it really worked out well because, when the, chaperone at the field trip, when that stuff mattered, I was there.
And that's something that my wife and I are dealing with right now. Our kids are young.
Yeah.
And, there's times where we both have to be at the school or at an event.
Sure.
And there's times when we can't, and then we have to plan our whole lives around being present for our kids.
Of course.
And it's a struggle at times.
Yep.
But it's so worth it.
Yeah.
And I see you, and I know that your kids are a little bit older than mine, that I'm doing what I need to do because at the end of the day, this is what they're going to remember, right?
It is. And I still show up. I mean, this week, literally, my 15-year-old got sick. She texted me like 11:20, and she's like, I just got sick. And I drove from Arlington to Bethesda to pick her up at school, dropped her off in front of the house, state to state, and then drove back to Rosalind, and I had to be at a meeting at 1:30. And it was like,
children are the real full-time job.
Right. Lewis Hamilton, I was just gunning it to get back to work, and I made it back to the meeting on time, but it was, so I'm still showing up that way, right? We all have to.
Right. That's just life.
It is.
And
It is. But I knew I wanted to be a general counsel, and I knew I couldn't stay in energy and actually do that because there's only one utility in any given geographic footprint. I couldn't move my husband. He's got a job and a career.
Right.
Couldn't move my kids, so I had to figure out how to move into an industry where there would be enough opportunity for me to be able to achieve my career goals. And so having this mentor, having someone...
It's so invaluable.
It is. Right, so 2 things, right? Mentor, sponsor, right? Mm-hmm. Charlie was both. And that was, and I've had incredible favor in life to have those opportunities, to have people who...
I have this as well.
Yeah, and it's a game changer, right? Part of it is raising your hand, and I did that. I was completely explicit about my objectives. I was completely open to trying new things and learning new things, and it was rewarded.
So if I'm a student listening to this and I have aspirations to be a lawyer, it sounds like what you're saying to me is that you should make your intentions known.
Correct.
Seek out people multiple times, right? Even if
you have to evolve your mentors, right? Because when you think about it, like who I needed as a first year is different. Your first year lawyer is different than who I need as a general counsel. Right now, my mentors are CEOs, right? Because I need to know how I can show up best, right? For my boss, the CEO. I report to the CEO. So it's a completely different.
constantly evolving.
Yes.
And your mentorship never stops. Even though you were at the height of your career and at the top of the food chain, you still benefiting from the counsel of a mentor.
Oh, 100%. I have like an advisory committee.
Wow.
And yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so critical. And I'm an active mentor. So I actually mentor, 15, 20 young people. Now, I mean, young, I say early career, right? I mean, it has nothing to do with age. And then I think also as a mom, right? As a wife, because these are all other areas of my life that I need to show up well in and that are not intuitive,
Right, yeah.
I mean, I didn't come out of the womb knowing how to be a mom, knowing how to be a wife,
We figure out as we go along.
Correct.
And hopefully we're doing a good job.
Correct.
Before I let you go, I want to just ask you, and as a mom, since we've been talking about this, do you see, you at 10 years old wanted to be a lawyer, right? Do you see that same thing in your children, in either one of your children?
Not at 10. So my oldest daughter is an artist. She is really, really interested in pursuing art. We are waiting now for, we all hope, a favorable response from a school she applied to, early decision.
Yes, we want to claim it. We claimed it. It's there.
Yes. Prayers up and blessings down. And it was important. I mean, the great thing is, there's alignment in between my husband and I about
it's so important
raising our kids to be limitless. I was raised that way. I am limitless. I decide what I want to do, and even though it seems lofty, I've set the intention.
Somebody's got to do it. Correct. Whatever it is.
Correct. Right. And so that's the way our kids are. And so it was like, how do we, once our oldest really started to express interest in art, how do we feed that and nurture it in a way that we all hope will manifest in a life and a career that is rewarding, that is financially stable.
Right, that's important too.
Right, that is all the things.
Mommy and daddy can't pay for you forever.
Correct. Right, and so I mean, so that's what we're doing. And then my youngest has now recently expressed an interest. She's 15. In neurology, neuroscience, and in psychology. And so she did 2 programs last summer. In that, she's going to do 2 programs.
They're very smart children.
They are. They are really smart. They are smart and nice.
And what a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's obvious to me sitting here that you are the full package. Mom, wife, super lawyer. And it's really inspirational.
Thank you.
And it lets me know that hopefully I can emulate that and be on the same track as you.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing magic about me. I will say that, right? It feels like it, but you're talking to me now. But if you talk to me at 20, people say that I was a secretary, a paralegal, and a law clerk before I became a lawyer. Mm-hmm. I went to law school. Everybody's path is different. I worked full time and went to law school at night because I just could not eat oodles and noodles and Kraft macaroni and cheese. Like I needed a salary.
Yeah.
I was 29 when I started at Georgetown.
You're 29 when you started law school.
When I started law school.
Okay, so you started way late.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. Wow. Absolutely. Right?
Interesting.
And then I came out, I had 2 offers. I was lucky to have two options. I did summer associate positions. And then I had an offer from that firm, and then I also had an offer from my
And that's a lot of money, job. I'm sure, at the time, right?
It was 100%. I came out at 6 figures easy.
Yeah, I had the opposite the career path.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had 3 degrees when I graduated from law school and made under $50,000 for many years.
Oh my goodness!
Right? Can you imagine that?
No, I cannot because that's why
many of my friends cannot. Actually,
I cannot. I mean, I went to school, worked full time when I went to grad school too.
Right. See, I did not. I was always a student. I mean, maybe I should have smartened up and got a job.
No, I don't know. I mean, when I got out of college, my first job, I made like $16,000 a year.
Look, I think I made that last week. Last year, I should say.
But yeah,
just kidding.
I was like,
everybody's path is different.
Everybody's path
I obviously
is different.
don't make, for all our listeners out there, $50,000 a year anymore. But I know the struggle, and you have to. My takeaway from what you're telling me, and from what I just know myself, is that you got to work hard, and whatever you claim,
correct.
it will manifest.
It will. It will if you have the intention, but I think you have to make sure you evolve, your goals. Right?
Exactly.
And so
just
it's
work hard at whatever it is.
Right. And think about
then you will achieve that success.
Correct.
Financial or otherwise.
Correct. But I think it is important to think about the attributes that you want, whatever your final goal to have.
Exactly. What's the end game?
What's the end game? So it's not just a title. It's like, it's like, what do I want? What kind of general counsel do I want to be? Mm-hmm. What kind of partner do I want to be, right? They're service partners, they're equity partners, right? They're general counsel that do all kinds of things, right? And for me, I want to be in a space where I have influence. I want to be in a space where I have true partners. Mm-hmm. I want to be in a space where I'm in an impactful and mission-driven organization.
And you have that. It seems like you have that.
I do.
When we were talking off camera, when you came in, you were so excited to talk about your work and what you do.
I love it. It is the best job I've ever had. It's the most important work I've ever done.
And when someone can say that, as simple as it may sound, it's not that common.
It's not. No, it's not. And I moved. I started at the holding company, and then there was a decision to bring a lawyer down. We were on the 27th floor. Politico's on the 8th floor, and into Politico. And I had to build the legal department, the function. I had to, create the partnerships, build the relationships.
Wow. So you're the top dog over there.
Yeah, I sure am.
All right. I know you have somewhere to go, so
yes, I'm sorry.
It's totally fine, but I'm not letting you escape that easy. We're gonna end this part of our interview, which I'm so glad and happy that you came. Thank you so much. But we're gonna go to part 2 in the next phase, which of course is talk about music. And stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because this lady, you think she's impressive now. Wait till you hear that music. Thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Lawyers Hip Hop Happy Hour. Please subscribe to this podcast. It's available everywhere, including Apple, Spotify, and Amazon. New episodes are released on the 12th of each month, and if you'd like to see the video version of any interview, they can be found on my YouTube page at the Lawyers Hip Hop Happy Hour. Thank you for your support, and I'll catch you on the B-side.